All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Millennials Are Old podcast. And you know what, Brian? I've been thinking, right? Last week we reviewed a truly revolutionary left-wing album. So you know what? I think we should review this week another revolutionary left-wing movie from one of our favorite communist directors.
One of our favorite communist, liberal, Clintonite directors.
Absolutely. And I was reading about a gentleman by the name of S. Craig Zahler, who directed possibly the most left-wing movie we've reviewed for the show, Dragged Across Concrete. And would you believe it? He's made other fucking movies.
I mean, I would hope so. Dragged Across Concrete is really the first time I watched a movie and I thought, wow, this really reflects my values. As someone that considers myself progressive, it's nice to see a movie where you're like, wow, I really identify with this and it's really speaking to me in a way that other lefty movies are just too pussy to do.
Exactly. And this movie is even more about class consciousness than that movie. So the movie we're going to review this week is the classic film Brawl in Cell Block 99. But before we get into our review this week, let's bring back our segment, Cringe Millennial of the Week.
Week.
Woo! Yeah! All right. So our Cringe Millennial this week is we're not going to cover all of this Cringe Millennial's issues with legally, his bands, him as a human being, etc. But I want to get into a little bit of that before we get into the topic of our Cringe Millennial this week. So our Cringe Millennial topic for this week is the Falling in Reverse song, Game Over. And the lyrical, spiritual, miracle genius behind this song is Ronnie Radke, the vocalist of the band Falling in Reverse and formerly of Escape the Fate. Now, we were talking about revolutionary people like the guys in fucking Vegan Reich and, of course, S. Craig Zahler. And Ronnie Radke is also a very liberatory figure. He's somebody who never was involved in a murder or committed domestic violence. He's just a really cool guy,
Well, I mean, to be honest, when you're talking about emo adjacent, metalcore stuff from that era, I mean, domestic violence pretty much goes without saying.
Well, to be fair, he mixed it up a little bit because there's no pedophilia as far as I'm aware of.
Really shocking to me.
To be fair, he's a sex pest, but I did not see the pedophilia.
Yeah, I guess I've never heard that about Radke either. Really, all I know about Ronnie Radke is his bullshit. I am not into his music. When I hear it, I go, oh, this is not for me. Right? This is like the thing that everyone started calling post-hardcore for a while. Like you'd be like, oh, I like post-hardcore. And you'd mean like Husker Du or Big Black. And everyone would go, oh, like Escape the Fate or something, right?
Or Bless the Fall or whatever bullshit fucking band.
Or my favorite post-hardcore band, 3-word name.
That really is the fucking thing. Holy shit. But we're not going to get into Ronnie Radke. We'll definitely get into him as an individual in later episodes, I promise you, because there's a treasure trove of cringe involving this guy. But the one I want to focus on is the song Game Over from the album Fashionably Late, the sophomore album from Falling in Reverse. And the lyrics of this song are great. And most of the instrumentation is like chiptune 8-bit shit. So, Brian, of course,
No.
I know how much you love Gen X and elder millennial nostalgia, especially when it comes to like fucking 80s and early 90s video games. So I knew for a fact you would love this song when I showed it to you.
So, like, let me just say, before I start to sound like Johnny Cool, like I'm like, oh, I only like cool shit. There is like chiptune, or at least I would never call it that. There is video game inspired music that's good, but this guy, right, he's like a scene guy, like a scene metal guy. So I can only imagine what his version of chiptune is.
Yeah, so, and the lyrics are hilarious. My life is like a video game. We always talk about people
I'm reading him now.
whose life a movie. This
Whose
guy's
life a
life a
movie?
video game.
My life a video game.
Trying hard to beat the stage all while I'm still collecting coins. And then afterwards, it's like the coin sound effect from fucking
Is this
Mario
real?
or something. No, this is actually a real song, yeah.
Well,
for
because
sure.
like this dude, right? He's not like a humorous guy. I'm guessing, right? This is like a serious song. He's trying to express something about the struggles of his life to you.
Yeah,
right?
At one point, he even talks about going to therapy in the song.
Obstacles, I'm jumping hurdles. I'm growing up to be a big boy. Is the big boy thing a reference to a video game?
I'm not sure, to be honest
I'm
with
growing up to be a big boy. What video game? A big boy. What video game is your goal to be a big boy?
I take a rest, I push the pause, level up and move along in hopes that the next stage I will clear.
This is so fucking redacted.
At one point,
my life is just like a video game.
Oh my God!
I collect rings. I turn into a spinning ball, and I fucking shoot through Emerald Hill Zone.
By the way, I know I made the whole joke about My Life a Movie, but it literally, one of the lyrics says, "My life is like a video game." Like,
yeah, no, it is.
Oh, that's absolutely
the first
hilarious.
line of the song.
Up, up, down. He even does the fucking Konami code in here.
Well, that's bullshit because we all know that that's already been done by the Gothsicles. Now that's a good troll band that we'll visit someday.
I did link to you the song, Brian. Did you listen to it?
No, I'm reading the lyrics. I think that's plenty.
Yeah, honestly, Brian, it's a pretty rough.
I battle with the evil ways. I travel far and try and save. Sorry, but your princess isn't here. I take her. Oh, okay, you said that part. What is the rhythm to this? I know it's not fair because I didn't listen to the music, but this seems to have no rhythm.
Yeah, it goes as something like, "My life is like a video game, trying hard to beat this." Kind of like that, but, he does it maybe 10% better, obviously, because he's like a professional musician. And he tries doing like almost like a sing-songy, like rhymey thing. It's just, with once again, chiptune 8-bit, like fucking Nintendo core in the background.
You think that those nerdcore guys suck shit? Like, you think like, oh, fuck Dwayne and Rando or whatever the fuck. But like, then you look at this and you're like, oh, it actually does take some sort of skill and craft to write a video game inspired song.
I'd rather listen to fucking Horse the Band than this bullshit. Like, seriously.
Today I went to therapy. Told him my embarrassing issues. How is that like a video game? What's the video? It's like he just gave up on it halfway through.
You know the famous video game, Brian, Therapy?
I mean, that probably was a video game in the 2010s.
Yeah, fucking Zoe Quinn
some Steam game. I was trying not to say her name, but yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I was trying not going to say her name, but yeah, that is what I was thinking of, yeah. Therapy Simulator.
Oh, God. But speaking of Therapy Simulator, now that we've covered this cringy-ass bullshit millennial topic, let's get into some real cool guy therapy, which is, of course, going to be our review of Brawl in Cell Block 99. Now, as we mentioned earlier, this is an S. Craig Zahler movie. It came out in 2017. It was not rated by the MPAA or the MPA, which I thought was very interesting. I was kind of shocked this wasn't actually rated because it actually did have a minor theatrical run.
Is it possible that he didn't submit it to prevent getting an X rating? Not or NC-17. Because this, I would say this is probably R, but the violence goes. This could be NC, I think.
Yeah, the violence is very visceral in this movie. It definitely wouldn't be for any sexual content because there's no sexual content in this movie, but the violence is gruesome in this fucking movie.
So that would be my guess, is he probably didn't submit it to prevent so that he could get some theatrical distribution without making cuts.
Exactly. And of course, I mentioned S. Craig Zahler earlier. He's made 3 movies now. He has a 4th movie that I think was announced, but I'm not even sure if it's in pre-production yet. But either way, he is the director of such movies as Bone Tomahawk, which is a movie that we're going to review at some point, but we haven't reviewed yet. This movie, and of course, Dragged Across Concrete. And I think, Brian, I mentioned this to you, and I don't know if you agree. I think S. Craig Zahler is probably the last great, like, fucking reactionary filmmaker at this point. Like,
yeah,
there's other reactionary filmmakers who are making, like, good to competent movies, but he's the last, like, great reactionary filmmaker.
He is a visionary director who is profoundly reactionary. And the thing with that is that there was an era, we like to pretend like there's no good reactionary or great reactionary art as leftists, like just in general. That's a thing that you see, especially in the last 20 years. And that's wasn't always true. There's always been great reactionary writers, filmmakers, musicians, up until pretty recently. And if you look at a lot of films, especially through obviously the early eras of cinema have a lot of reactionaries, but really in the 80s, you get a lot of great reactionary genre filmmakers. They kind of fall by the wayside because, reactionaries are all obsessed with like culture and identity politics. Like they say we're obsessed with identity politics, but they really are.
Oh boy,
and I think that leads to them making this shit Ben Shapiro funded art. This leads to them making Lady Ballers or whatever.
Well, speaking of Brian, I'm just going to get right into that because that leads perfectly into my next segment here. So, this movie was produced by Jack Heller and Dallas Saulnier, who were the producers of all of S. Craig Zahler's movies. And this movie was written by S. Craig Zahler as well. But you talked about Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire slop. Jack Heller and fucking Dallas Saulnier are most known for producing modern movies now, such as What is a Woman, Run, Hide, Fight, Terror on the Prairie, and Lady Ballers.
See, and that sucks. And I'm just kind of to wrap up, I guess what I was talking about, I'll be fast, I promise. So the thing with political art in general, whether it's on the left or right, is that it's more effective. And this is a thing that I'm directly taking from this is a thing that Hitler believed about propaganda. This isn't original or unique to him, but is that if you're making propaganda, your politics shouldn't be front loaded, right? They're more effective if they're just implicit and the audience can watch the art and be led to your conclusions and believe they're coming up with them themselves, whether it's leftist or right-wing art. And what Zahler does, I think, really well is he creates a movie where he leads the audience to his reactionary conclusions instead of explaining them to you, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, I would say for the most part, I would say Dragged Across Concrete is a little too blatant in my opinion, but I think this movie, he does a pretty good job of weaving that web.
I think this movie, he does an excellent job to the point where, and this is not me trying to say that this is a good moral movie. If you wanted to, if I sat and watched this movie, I could read our protagonist here as a base lib. You could push yourself to see this movie this way. You'd be doing some real mental gymnastics. Whereas Dragged Across Concrete, I would agree that it's a little too blatant. The actual politics of Dragged Across Concrete are pretty repugnant in a way that this film's aren't exactly, I guess.
Yeah, there's very subtle hints on the obvious sort of moral, fucking pathway that S. Craig Zahler wants you to take. But yeah, Dragged Across Concrete, there's really no sort of obfuscation. It is definitely extremely right wing. And that's the thing about, I mentioned Run, Hide, Fight as one of the movies. That's actually a movie that I think actually out of the 4 piece of shit movies, or I should say out of the 4 post fucking S. Craig Zahler movies that these guys produced, that's the one that I think comes closest to S. Craig Zahler. Because the thing about Run, Hide, Fight is that it is a movie that has very obvious politics, but it is one of those movies where you could garner other philosophical, socio-political meaning from it. But the other 3 that I mentioned, there is nothing. There is nothing. What is a Woman and Lady Ballers are just propaganda movies. That's all the fuck those are. I don't know about Terror on the Prairie. I've heard Terror on the Prairie is almost that too. But Lady Ballers and What is a Woman are just propaganda films.
So I haven't watched Run, Hide, Fight yet. I do need to. I think it sounds like a fucking insane fun time. And
and I think I told you about it, right?
You did tell me a bit. Yeah, you told me it's on the drive too.
It's fucking Die Hard, but a school shooting. It's awesome.
Yeah. Aren't the villains, if I remember it, I had read that the villains, they're kind of like they, them Jokers, right?
Yeah, the main guy is the Joker, and then there's his girlfriend and her brother are in a weird quasi 3-way relationship. It's bizarre.
Well, the thing is, and we can say look at all of these reactionary movies. They're so bad. They're so stupid. But some of those movies are fucking fun. You ever seen Red Dawn? You ever seen Cobra? You ever seen Cop with James Woods? Those are pretty disgusting movies, but boy howdy, are they a good fucking time. I'm sorry.
And I think Run, Hide, Fight is kind of trying to go in that direction. But yeah, so that is
probably
a fun
doesn't
movie.
Pull it off.
I would say it's more entertaining than you'd think. It is more entertaining than you'd think. And then speaking of entertainment, so this movie is 132 minutes long. It had a budget of about $4 million, and just like all of S. Craig Zahler's movies, it made no fucking money. It made $79,208 at the box office. Which, that's the thing, is that was very similar to Dragged Across Concrete, because that movie had a budget of, I think, $15 million, and it grossed $5. He makes movies that make no money.
Well, the thing is, if he were a little bit less bleak in his worldview, he probably could make some crowd-pleasing movies. Prison movies do well. On paper, this movie is not that far removed from the film Penitentiary or something like that, which was a huge hit for a low-budget movie. But I think his worldview is so bleak.
It is. Well, speaking of bleak, the last detail I have here is on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 90% critic score and a 74% audience score. So critics very, very much liked this movie.
It's
And
good.
yeah, great fucking movie. And before we get into the synopsis here, I did have one little trivia fact I glossed over. But so S. Craig Zahler actually wrote this screenplay before Bone Tomahawk, despite Bone Tomahawk coming out first. So I think that's very interesting. And, I haven't watched Bone Tomahawk yet. I'm really excited because I've heard that's like the best one. So I'm
We should
really
do it for the show.
excited. We are 100%.
We
The next few episodes, we're absolutely reviewing Bone Tomahawk.
We should do it soon. We'll just round it out.
Yeah,
We'll do the
yeah.
trilogy. I wonder, and I also have obviously I've not seen Bone Tomahawk either. I wonder if this script was more ambitious because this movie it has several locations, it has some big set pieces. Bone Tomahawk. Is it like a single set movie or something? Maybe
No, it's like a
no.
neo-Western.
Okay.
It's like a
I mean,
neo-Western.
I kind of guessed with that title, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So before we get into talking about more about Bone Tomahawk, let's get into the synopsis of this film. So the movie begins with Bradley Thomas, played by your favorite actor, Vince Vaughn, as well as my favorite actor. And before we get too into it, though, we talked about it on Dragged Across Concrete as well as this movie. But S. Craig Zahler is like the one filmmaker who actually knows how to fucking use Vince Vaughn, which is great.
Well, this got me thinking. So this is two Zahler movies where Vaughn is very good. And I don't like Vince Vaughn. I find him annoying. And then I was thinking, maybe he is a good actor and he just gets typecast in these shitty comedies.
Well, not only typecast in shitty comedies, he was Norman Bates in the Psycho remake.
That's right. You are right. I forgot about that. That was maybe, I would have to rewatch that to be sure. That might not have been entirely his fault. Like, how do you do Anthony Perkins and not be Anthony Perkins?
And also look like Vince Vaughn and do that. Like, horrible casting.
Well, to his credit, not his credit, but in his defense, he was not known at that time in the same way yet.
That's actually a good point, yeah. But, well, to be fair, even then, though, because Norman Bates isn't 6.5 feet tall. Like, I just don't see Norman Bates.
No, he's a tiny little guy.
Whereas Vince Vaughn in real life is 6.5 feet tall. Like, I mean, just, no. I'm sorry, just no.
Well, although I will say, and I'm sure I said the same thing on our Dragged Across Concrete episode, I do find it a little distracting in the first half hour of this movie, watching it and hearing Vince Vaughn's voice, and he'll say a certain word, and I go, oh, yeah, that's fucking Vince Vaughn.
Yeah. But yeah, so he is laid off from his job at an auto repair shop. And the next trivia fact I have here is Vince Vaughn put on about 15 pounds of muscle and trained as a boxer for 3 months prior to walking on set. He stated that this made the fight choreography much easier to learn. And, before we get into too deep into it again, a lot of the Amazon reviews complained about, and I didn't include any of these, but there were a lot of dipshits in the Amazon review section, both for positive and negative reviews. But they mentioned that a lot of the fight choreography in this movie is kind of slow and really not fluid at all. But here's the thing, right? Most actual fights in real life are not very fluid. They're not cinematic. Right. And then also, on top of it, Vince Vaughn is in his late 40s when they made this movie. I mean, come on.
No, but you're exactly right, Taylor. The violence in this is not very choreographed. I mean, it is. It doesn't look it because it's this ugly kind of blunt violence that happens really fast and is kind of clumsy, which is what violence is.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, like I said, he's a guy in his late 40s. And then also on top of it, he's a guy who hasn't been into fitness or boxing or athletics for probably a long fucking time. So he's probably a little rusty. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, he really he did the work for this fucking movie. No question of it.
So when he arrives home, he finds a hickey on his wife, Lauren, played by the actress Jennifer Carpenter, who was also in Dragged Across Concrete. She does not have the same arc in this movie as that one, but I think this movie might be a prequel to that arc, if you know what I mean. There's definitely some similarities because in that movie, of course, she gives birth, she has the baby, of course, very contrived sequence where she's like, I don't want to go to work. And then, of course, a woman going to work, Brian, that just leads to disaster. Women shouldn't be made to go to work, especially mothers should not be made to work.
What's interesting, again, talking about Zahler leading you to his politics, is that Vince Vaughn's character doesn't seem to really, doesn't express a lot of these reactionary views, at least not overtly.
Yeah, no, he doesn't.
He kind of goes along with everything, Yeah,
exactly. So she admits to an extramarital affair. Bradley orders her inside the house before he violently dismantles her car, which you said was in fucking Street Fighter 2.
It's a Street Fighter 2 bonus stage. It's awesome. He straight up just pummels her car.
He rips off the hood and fucking punches through her window and tears out the fucking headlights.
It's awesome. It is awesome.
So then the next trivia fact I have here related to that is during a Q&A at the Toronto International Film Festival, the producers commented that the destruction of the car was done by Vince Vaughn. The car parts were real and were set up in a way that Vince Vaughn wouldn't hurt himself too badly, which I fucking love that they did that practically. That's so
It's awesome. That you can tell when you're watching that scene though. I mean, like it hurts my hands to watch, dude.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. He later discusses with Lauren their failing relationship, forgives her, and returns to drug trafficking. So that's the thing. This synopsis a little bit, went over this, but he was trying to live a clean life. He's not living the best of situations, kind of like a lower middle class type life where, she's having a hard time getting pregnant. They always wanted a kid. The relationship is clearly failing. And he's like, well, you know what? I'm going to get back into dealing drugs where I was actually able to make a fucking living. And
because he scraped himself up, he's carved out this nice little living for him and his wife, and they want to start a family. And then he gets laid off, right? That's at the start of the movie. Which
is why you could, if you're not really paying attention to the first fucking 15 minutes, you could see a sort of left-wing sort of interpretation of this movie.
If you wanted to and you really squinted, I think you could, but it would be inaccurate. But I think it's plausible to read that way.
Absolutely, yeah. So 18 months later, Bradley and a now pregnant Lauren have adjusted to a better life. Now, I love when you see her first pregnant because she is literally in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant. Which, that's the thing about leading that reactionary thought point, because that is literally a phrase that a lot of hardcore reactionary trad wife circles is barefoot pregnant in the kitchen.
And again, our protagonist doesn't go, I don't want you working because you're a woman and I'm a man. He's just like, hey, I just worry about you. I just want the best for you. I want, I want to be providing and protecting, which is, if you believe that, that's what you're supposed to say if you're a reactionary, right?
Exactly. It's for the best that you're barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. So Bradley's boss, Gil, played by the actor Mark Blucas, introduces him to Eleazar, played by the actor Don Mucciacito.
Can I call out a thing with there is a thing where his boss, his drug-dealing boss, who he's running for, starts talking about the N-word and the hard R and the soft A and all that. And then our hero, Mr. Vince Vaughn, says, I don't think there's any way a guy like you can say that word and sound nice. So he's he's kind of pushing back on his boss for saying the N-word. Oh, he doesn't even see color, probably.
And also, the water bottle scene is really funny, too. He says something like, faggy water. And he's like, I didn't know that water had a sexual orientation.
Yeah, he is being like a smug 2000s lib here.
Yeah. So yeah, Eleazar is a new business associate with a task to pick up a package of crystal meth with two of Eleazar's men. Bradley distrusts one of Eleazar's henchmen, Roman, played by the actor Gino Seegers, but accepts the job when Gil offers him 3 months paternity leave, which I also love that, by the way. It's like, you know what, we're in a very informal job fucking thing here, but, I'm going to give you paid paternity leave. I don't know, I don't really think that's how...
I would never trust that guy. If a fucking crime lord drug trafficker says, I'm going to give you time off for your kid, they're planning to kill you.
Yeah.
In real life.
I'll give you a lot of time off, you know what I mean? Go in this ditch in a field real quick with me.
What, does he have PTO built up?
Yeah. He gets floating PTO at this fucking drug trafficking.
Anyway.
Yeah, anyways. During the job, Bradley realizes that it is a police trap and orders Eleazar's men to ditch the drug. However, Eleazar's men ignore him and exchange fire with the police. Bradley, hesitant, attacks Eleazar's men. One of the men is fatally shot by the police while Roman is incapacitated. The police detain Bradley alive. Unwilling to give out names, Bradley is sentenced to 7 years in a medium security prison, which, so here's maybe where this could be another left-wing interpretation, right? In this scene, this guy is basically being a Blue Lives Matter guy, where he gets involved in a situation that he could very easily, escape from at this point. And he decides to help the police incapacitate the two henchmen, and he still gets punished anyways. Just a bizarre thing. Is this movie saying, even if you're a Blue Lives Matter guy, you're still going to get fucked over by the cops? I don't understand, why he would do that. It makes no sense.
That's what it ends up saying. But what it's trying to say, right, is he's actually a good guy because he saved the cops. And then the detective that tried him, that's interrogating him, he wants to help him. He's like, I know you're a good guy because you saved those cops. So you got to be an informant. So he fucked up there by not working with that detective, I think is what the movie kind of thinks.
Oh, okay, yeah, because as we always know, and of course reactionaries are always right on this, always, cooperate with the cops. They always have your best interests in mind. They're your friends,
But that is like, but in that scene, even though he's being interrogated, I do think that's how the movie is positing it. It's like, oh, this detective's a good guy, and he can tell that our protagonist is a good guy.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't personally think it makes a lot of sense, but I guess in like the
It
fucking
doesn't.
viewpoint, yeah. If this was me, I would just run away and just hope to God they didn't see me run away. Like that's what the fuck. Because at this point, like it's cops having to shoot out with two guys. Like no one's gonna pay attention to like some guy walking in the background. You know what I mean? Like he could have probably fairly easily gotten away from this.
Oh yeah, he'd have been gone.
Yeah. During the night, Eleazar's men kidnap Lauren. In prison, Bradley is visited by the Placid Man, played by the actor Udo Kier, a henchman for Eleazar. The Placid Man commands Bradley to assassinate an inmate who is held in cell block 99. That's the fucking title drop about halfway in the movie.
Great title too. Like I love titles like this that are like a sentence that give you just the plot and tone of a movie. I fucking hate when a movie is called like The River.
Yeah.
Like, I love a title like The Taking of Pelham 123,
Yeah, I mean this movie could have been called Red Leaf, which is the name of the prison. And it's like, well,
oh my God.
I don't get what that could possibly mean. But yeah, Brawl in Cell Block 99 is a great title. I think Dragged Across Concrete is, of course, a great title because that's what that movie feels like sometimes in a good way.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think that's a great title, Dragged Across Concrete. That's like a fucking Swans album or a Neurosis album.
Yeah. But yeah, he gets sent to Red Leaf, a maximum security prison, or that's where he's trying to get to. If Bradley refuses, and this is another like very reactionary tell because this is fucking stupid. If Bradley refuses, the limbs of his unborn child will be surgically removed and sent to him by an abortionist. First off, that's not a thing that can happen. I'm sorry. That does not happen. That's not a thing that exists.
Yeah, what if he just had said that's impossible?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I think they're trying to scare him. They're trying to say is like, if you don't fucking do this, we're gonna murder your fucking wife and your baby. Which that's the thing that they would totally do. But cutting off the limbs of a fetus while absolutely fucking not. Ridiculous.
It's too much.
It's too much. And that's the thing. I think that's probably part of like the reactionary fucking viewpoint. It's like, well, abortionists are murderers and mutilators, so of course they'd find like an abortionist who'd be willing to do that. So yeah, stupid, but you know what? It's part of the so evil bad guy thing in this movie that it works enough for me. It works enough.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. Well, because here's the thing with this movie is that I don't know if this is Zoller's intention. To me, this is very much like a 70s exploitation movie. It's got a vibe that I could compare it to like, again, like a Death Wish movie, but even like a blaxploitation movie, kind of this like gritty kind of action, kind of urban movie. I don't know. And I think in that perspective, I can take the amputation abortionist thing.
No, I agree. Yeah. It's one of those things where it works in this movie. If this wasn't in any other movie, though, I'd be like, oh, come on.
Well, no, I mean, let's be clear. I don't think it works. Like, I don't think it is stupid and distracting, but I think it's funny and I like it because it's memorable.
That's actually a good point. I totally agree with that part.
But it's dumb as hell.
It's dumb as hell, exactly. Bradley reluctantly accepts and fights multiple guards in order to be transferred to Red Leaf. And this is where like some of the really like visceral violence starts because like he fights the security guard and a pretty rough scene where he like breaks his arm in half and you see like the arm fucking bone like go through his
bone
skin,
popping out of his fucking elbow. It's gross, man.
It's gross. And also, I read a trivia fact, and I don't know if I believe this one, but you know what? It was on IMDb, so I'm just gonna say it. So on IMDb, they said that the sort of the special effects in this movie are like prosthetics and like because there's no like digital effects in this movie, which I also really appreciate. But like all the prosthetics and stuff were made to look like intentionally cheesy, like 70s and 80s like horror movie and action prosthetics. Yeah. So, and I really appreciate that because like, even though some of it does look a little over the top and comic booky, it works because it's just like so brutal at first that, it's great. Yeah, it's almost like comic booky, some of the violence in this at certain points with the fucking prosthetics and everything, which I don't know. I think it works. I think it works.
I think the prosthetics in this look pretty good. They don't look realistic, but again, I don't think that this movie is going for necessarily hyper realism.
No.
Like, I think it's going for 70s exploitation.
Exactly. So he eventually gets sent to Red Leaf. Bradley meets the authoritarian Warden Tuggs, played by Don Johnson, who was also in Dragged Across Concrete. There's a lot of Dragged Across Concrete actors in this movie, or I should say, fucking Brawl in Cell Block 99 actors in Dragged Across Concrete. So a lot of returning favorites, who demeans him and sends Bradley to a dilapidated cell. He learns that Cell Block 99 is for society's most despised criminals. Bradley starts a brawl with other prisoners in order to be reassigned to Cell Block 99. Also, another great action scene here. We just, once again, fucks up a bunch of other guys. And, like, I don't know. I just love this. I love all the action scenes in this movie, but this is, like, my second favorite in the fucking prison yard. It's just so good.
I think this is my favorite.
Really? Oh, my favorite is the very last one. But yeah, they're pretty close to neck and neck. But never mind. We'll get into that once we get to that last fight scene. So after he is reassigned, Bradley learns that his assassination target does not exist. During the night, a Red Leaf guard escorts Bradley to another cell where Eleazar and his gang, including Roman, are held. Now, before we continue, the main guard, the sort of short, white, bald guy, this was the cameo, or I should say the fucking casting choice that's bizarre. You know who that guy is, Brian?
Who?
That is, and I'm not kidding, is the main kid from fucking Sandlot.
Oh, fuck.
Isn't that bizarre?
Why is he in here?
I don't know. It makes no sense.
I did not even, I would never in a million years have thought that.
Yeah, he's fucking Scotty Smalls from fucking Sandlot. Yeah, just would have never guessed in a million years, but I was doing cast research and I'm like, no motherfucking way. They got the main kid from Sandlot to be a prison guard.
They're killing us.
Yeah. They're killing you, Smalls. Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ. They intend to torture Bradley for their amusement throughout his incarceration at Red Leaf. So that's the whole thing, is that the fucking Placid Man sets him up for this bullshit. He gets sent to this awful prison that, I mean, I mentioned this last night in the chat. S. Craig Zoller's motif for a lot of his movies, and might even be for all of them, and once again, I've not seen Bone Tomahawk, but it's definitely for this movie and Dragged Across Concrete. It is the descent to hell. That is the motif. He starts in an okay position, it's still okay, and then it just goes fucking downhill consistently. And he's literally in the fucking, he's in the asshole of the worst prison. The prison guards at this prison, they're not even dressed like fucking guards. They're dressed like fucking concentration camp fucking guards.
Oh yeah, they're literally just here to torture. They don't have any function as prison guards.
No, yeah, they are the SS of prison guards. That's what the fuck they are. I mean, they're even dressed like fucking Nazi fucking prison guard. They're wearing all black. They got one little red armband and shit. No badges. It's just yeah. If modern day Nazis existed in a prison guard as prison guards, that's what they look like.
Well, they do exist in prison guards. They're the guards.
That is actually very true. But yes, so Bradley ambushes the guards and brutally kills most of Eleazar's gang. And this is an action scene I fucking love because it's just so fucking goofy. One of the guys he fucks up, he fucking curb stomps his head into the concrete and drags it. Which this movie should have called Dragged Across Concrete, but anyways. And he
dragged head across concrete, dragged face across concrete.
And he flips him over and it looks so goofy, but I love it. And then another guy, he fucking pokes his eyes out with his thumb and breaks his neck and shit. And then another guy, he just fucks him up and slams his head onto a table. It's all pretty good visceral violence.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
And then eventually he gets to Eleazar, and Eleazar calls the doctor to carry out Eleazar's threat to harm Bradley's unborn child. Bradley tortures Eleazar until he calls off the operation. Now, I also love this one, too, because he breaks Eleazar's leg, and he's like, if you don't call it off, the other one's next. And he's like, all right, fine, whatever. And then he talks to the Placid Man, and he's like, yeah, don't do this. Can you, not? And he's like, yeah, I guess, sure. So he stops the fucking operation. And also, there's a scene right before this where they show Jennifer Carpenter's character, she's blindfolded and, handcuffed or whatever, and, a fucking not a gurney, a hospital bed, and the quote-unquote abortionist comes in, and she's like, no, please don't do this. And the Placid Man's just like, you know what, it's so sad that she didn't have smarter parents. And I'm like, that's so cold.
That's gross. It makes my skin crawl. Yeah,
it's such a fucking, it makes your skin crawl, a fucking psychotic villain line. But the synopsis is almost over, so I want to get over the Placid Man. The Placid Man, Udo Kier, of course, is a great bad guy actor. He does such a fucking good job in this movie. I fucking love this guy. And also Don Johnson does
Chilling.
a great job too. Like, and you know, he's not really in the movie that much, but you can see him as like a sadistic like prison warden. You can really see him as that.
Don Johnson is great. Other than Vaughn, who I was shocked by his performance in this, Johnson is my favorite performance in the movie, right after Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, absolutely. Jennifer Carpenter, she's just okay, but to be fair, Jennifer Carpenter's okay in pretty much everything.
I
I've
mean,
ever seen
she's
her.
good. Everyone's good in this movie.
Yeah, no, I should say not like okay, like meh. It's just like, you know, she's good. Yeah, she's fine.
She,
Like,
as expected. I would have loved to see more of that prison warden. I understand that, there just wasn't a lot for him to do, but I would have loved to see more of that character.
absolutely. All right. And to finish up the synopsis here, so the placid man and the abortionist follow Eleazar's orders and drive Lauren unarmed to Gil's house, because that was the option. It's either kill Eleazar and you won't have a boss anymore, I guess, or you could do what I say. And they actually listened to him, which is good, because when I think of evil Germans and abortionists, I think the first person they're going to listen to is fucking Vince Vaughn. That's what I think. So they drop Lauren off. As they drive away, Gil retrieves a hidden rifle and kills the placid man, which I don't know why they didn't expect that in the first place.
Yeah, of course.
To be fair, I mean, the placid man is also holding a gun through the driver window, which, whatever, that's something, I guess. But he must have gotten distracted or something, and Gil just pulls out a gun and just shoots him, so whatever. And then you're talking about the fucking reactionary viewpoint of this movie. Then once again, the platonic ideal of a white mother, once again barefoot and pregnant, grabs the gun and shoots the abortionist. I mean if that's Nazi propaganda.
Awesome.
Let's be honest
Yeah,
here.
it is. And this is the thing where the politics really start beating you over the head, I would say.
Yeah, but it's also within the last 5 minutes of the movie, so it's it got to the finish line before it did that. Oh, geez. Gil phones Bradley to inform him that his family is finally safe, and Bradley speaks to Lauren about their unborn child. And also at this point, he's holding the guards hostage. He accidentally kills the fucking Sandlot guy, and he's holding one of the other guards, along with Eleazar in his cell, and he says, listen, I'm just here to finish my business. Then after that, you can do whatever you want with me, whatever. And after he's done with all this, he's like, I got a minute left. Just give me one more minute. And then he decapitates Eleazar, and his head goes into the shithole.
It's awesome because they do such a great setup with the shithole. It's
Yeah.
alluded to early on in the film, and you're like, oh my god, this is didn't think about it at the time. Oh, this is gonna come back, but it does in such an awesome and insane fucking Grindhouse 70s way.
Yeah. And he also ends it with, he's like, they say that the head's still alive after detachment. We'll see if that's real. And then the head goes in the shithole. And he's like, well, let's see.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so. And then, of course, Tuggs and his guards come in. He gives up, but I think we all know Tuggs is going to kill him. And he shoots him in the chest and the head, and he's dead. Which, by the way, I love that ending. I want to be very clear. That is the perfect way for him to go out. It's very similar to Drive. Except for at the end of that, you don't actually see Driver die. But let's be honest with you, he's dead, obviously.
Oh, yeah. But no, it did remind me of Drive. The end of it, that is.
So I really appreciate that they killed him very definitively. I appreciate that quite a bit. And that is the end of the synopsis here. And before we get into our final opinions, oh my God, Brian, I want to get into these Amazon reviews because, oh my God, I found some real dipshits. I found 4. I decided because I was actually going to put 6 or 7 reviews in here if we had the time, but I only have 4 reviews and they're all pretty good length. They're not crazy long or anything like that. And I limited them to 4, but trust me, I had a lot more dumb reviews. So, and once again, these are positive and negative reviews, which we very rarely have positive and negative reviews that are all dumb. We usually have one extreme is dumb, then the other. So we actually got all dumb reviews here from all variances on perspective here.
Good. I love the bad reviews. They don't ruin my day at all.
Oh God. So yeah, our first review here is from Chris Johnson, who gives us 5 stars. And the head of the review says, like this documentary did to me. And the body of the review says, this documentary really shows a side of prison not many people get to see. And I have to hand it to these guys for this unmatched authenticity and raw emotion. Seeing this side of people really made me question our country's prison system. There are some untold stories out there that can inspire a change of heart in anyone, like this documentary did to me. I am most grateful for discovering my own unfounded biases through this powerful documentary. And I'm thinking, did this person review the wrong movie?
Is this did Daniel Larson write this review?
Yeah, the documentary. What? It's just baffling. I was like, did they maybe use the wrong term? But no, I think they literally think this is a documentary.
ESL, maybe?
It's possible, but also Chris Johnson,
Yeah, just a baffling AI word salad. It's a
Yeah.
bot.
I think this review came up before AI was really it, because most of these reviews are from like 2018, 2019, but still, just, yeah,
Okay.
baffling. Baffling. And then speaking of baffling, our next review here is from Richard T. Jameson, who gives us 4 stars. And the header of the review says, Vince Vaughn was robbed. And the body of the review says, S. Craig Zoller ranks among the most fascinating forces to arrive on our cinema scene in the past decade. Well, that I actually agree with. His astonishing merger of Western and horror film, Bone Tomahawk, was followed by his ferocious crime world movie starring, or by this ferocious crime world movie starring Vince Vaughn as a master criminal whose conduct is informed with both artistic and ethical commitment. Vaughn gave one of the year's best performances, which of course went unmentioned in the ensuing Oscar derby, plus Jennifer Carpenter and a late arriving but memorable Don Johnson. And that's the review here. And first off, like, I didn't agree with all this review. I agreed with most of it. But also, Oscar derby? There's no motherfucking way this is an Oscar-nominated movie. Like, are you kidding me?
This is absolutely not the type of movie they recognize.
No. I love S. Craig Zoller, but the Academy will never, ever give him any credit. Ever. They won't even give him, like, when he dies, like, in memoriam. They won't do that. Absolutely not.
No.
This guy got started in the Puppet Master series and was a black metal musician.
He's made movies, yeah. He's made the Puppet Master film, or been involved in it, and then he's made these weird grindhouse reactionary films.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. I mean, the closest person to ever get that kind of treatment from the Academy Awards is fucking Quentin Tarantino. But, like, come on.
And he had to basically force his way onto the scene with Reservoir Dogs. He was impossible to ignore by 94.
Well, also, speaking of Quentin Tarantino, like, half the reviews on Amazon mentioned, like, especially the negative reviews, were like, oh my God, this is just a Quentin Tarantino knockoff. And, like, is it really? No, I didn't think so either.
No, they have very distinct and very different styles.
Yeah, I mean, just because he's made Grindhouse movie, I mean, he literally made a movie called Grindhouse. So, like, there's that similarity, but that's really about it. Like, I don't really think there's that much similarities.
But in terms of aesthetic, worldview, subtext, I mean, they're like starkly different.
Yeah, but I saw so many people meant Quentin Tarantino, and I'm like, am I going crazy? Because I don't see it.
Maybe just because it's a violent movie, and so people are like, oh, it reminds me of Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, I guess. There's like that one tweet where it's like, someone who's only seen Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and it's like, this movie really reminds me of Shark Boy and Lava Girl, or something like that. Something along those lines.
Another kids movie, another movie with adventure.
Yeah. Well, speaking of adventure, this person has a very adventurous imagination for our next Amazon review. So, Amazon customer gives this movie 3 stars. And the head of the review says, I only gave it 3 stars because I hated the ending. And these are always my favorite, are people who hate the endings for really dumb reasons. And trust me, Brian, this is really dumb. So the body of the review says, wow, not sure what to say about this one. I only gave it 3 stars because I hated the ending. I think the social worker from the first prison should have gotten involved. Maybe found out what was going on and rescued him from Redcliffe. Or the warden there decided he was sick of the drug lord and his muscle and decided Bradley should get AAA treatment, like the Kingpin did. Of course, that means he couldn't have killed the guards. Anyway, I suppose it turned out how it really would have turned out. I did like his wife's release. That was awesome.
I just wish this movie had a happy, epic ending. That would be badass.
That's the thing, Brian. We love S. Craig Zoller for his uplifting and upbeat endings.
I mean, like, if you enjoy the rest of this movie, then you should be expecting, like, the tone of this movie is that, I mean, it's pretty clear it's not going to have a happy ending one way or the other, I feel like.
No, absolutely not. I'm sorry, if you watch this movie and you're like, man, there really should have been, like, some fucking social justice intervention. Like, what the fuck? Baffling.
Genius. Awesome.
Genius. And then our final review here is from maybe my single favorite brain genius here. And boy, Brian, I told you a lot of these are dumb. This might be the single dumbest one in my opinion. This one's great. So Debbie gives us 1 star. And the header of the review says, dumb and violent. And the body of the review says, oh no, another man is going off on a murderous rampage because his wife and daughter are in trouble. Aren't we tired of that same script time after time by now? We get it. Men use their family as an excuse to kill lots of people. Terrible movie. I'm sick of garbage movies like this with nothing but violence. And thank you very much, Helen Lovejoy, for writing an Amazon review.
Yeah, no shit. I mean, this is the type of thing where it's like, whatever. I guess that's not how I feel about pretty much any movie. But I know a lot of people feel that way, so it might be a useful review. But you're so far removed from the audience for this film that at this point, it's almost like, why bother writing a review?
I love that fucking thing though. It's like, men who get involved in shitty situations then are forced to murder people, that common thing that men have to do. Like, I don't know, just bizarre. And also I love, there's like a meme or whatever. It's like, man gets involved in shitty situation, is forced to commit murder to save his family. Wife and child most affected. Just bizarre. Like, having like a fucking lib feminist, that kind of lib feminist analysis in this movie is hilarious to me.
I wasn't sure if it was that they were doing a lib feminist analysis or like you said, like a Helen Lovejoy, Think of the Children, because those two things on paper seem so similar that it's hard to tell where someone's coming from,
Yeah, and I am just really not sure where this person's coming from, but either way, I thought it was hilarious because I took it, from the fucking like lib feminist perspective, and I'm just like, that is an interesting way to look at this movie because, like, obviously there are movies that are like toxic masculine movies, and to be fair, I mean, Bradley Thomas is a toxic masculine character to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Sure.
But like, there's worse toxic masculine characters that you could say about this. Like, he's a benevolent toxic masculine like guy. Like,
well, yeah, of course.
Like in comparison to some others.
Yeah, and that's where the somewhat more low key reactionary subtext to this comes through. Is that our reactionary hero is so benevolent, and he's so it's so easy to put yourself in his shoes.
And it's pretty similar to Mel Gibson's character in Dragged Across Concrete, because that's who he is too. Like, he's a guy who's, I mean, he's willing to fuck up people. I mean, he's a, piece of shit cop. Even by piece of shit cop standards, he's a piece of shit cop. You know what I mean? Like, and in that movie, he's like, well, he's only doing it so like his disabled wife and his kid can have a good life. It's that's why he's a piece of shit bad cop.
Yeah, but our hero in Brawl is even more removed from those politics. He's even more just trying to see whereas like Dragged Across Concrete, it does kind of front load its right-wing politics. This movie, I mean, towards the end, they get a little more obvious, but for most of the movie, they kind of just boil under the surface.
Yeah, as we mentioned, he, like, on certain scenes, he's like a base lib on certain scenes. Like, he's a guy who...
Or he could be.
He could be, yeah. I would say he has, like, liberal social values in a lot of situations, but because of the circumstances in the world that he's in, he feels like he has to do these things to, be a drug trafficker, to have a more stable financial life for his family and shit like that.
He low-key doesn't like a certain type of homophobia, and he low-key likes black people. He listens to soul music. Most of the characters that he has friendly rapport with in prison are black. The nice attorney that says, I know you're a good guy, I need you to, be a witness for us, is a black guy,
Yeah, the social worker is an Indian woman, you know what I mean? And he fucking admonishes his boss for using the N-word. So, like, he has, like, liberal social... And the only reason he beats up, like, the black guard at the first prison is because he feels like he has to, like, he would not have done it otherwise.
Yeah.
He just would not have. Like, that's just
because the movie kind of leads you to think that we're going to see a budding friendship between that black guard and our hero.
And if it wasn't for the Placid Man, that might have happened.
And I also think that that's a nod to this 1970s film Penitentiary, because that's a film about boxing in prison that I think was something of an influence on Brawl In Cell Block 99.
Also, another prison movie with, I would say, pretty interesting racial politics is, of course, Assault on Precinct 13, where the black cop and the white death row inmate are teaming up to take on the most multiracial gang of all time.
I know we all think about Carpenter as, horror, but that might be, in some ways, his masterpiece.
Oh, yeah, I fucking love Assault on Precinct 13. Underrated movie for fucking sure.
Did you ever see the remake?
I've seen it at Mega Media Exchange for like $1 multiple times. Yeah. I refuse. I'm sorry. I just refuse. It's to be fair, though.
Unnecessary.
John Carpenter would want people to see his remakes, though, because he makes more money every time that happens.
Oh, yeah. He's so based.
I love that quote, right?
Which one?
It's the quote of like, whenever anybody asks me to remake one of my movies, I just put out my hand and say, where's the check? Like, he's just so I'm cool. Fine with that. And that's the thing, I mean, Halloween, Assault on Precinct 13, The Thing.
No one's stopping you from watching those old movies.
Yeah, and those movies are going to be bad anyways, so just don't even think about it. And John Carpenter's fine with it because he gets a paycheck. It's fine. It's fine.
If he's fine with it, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, like, in other filmmakers who got screwed over on certain things, who aren't as okay with it, like, we can talk about that, but John Carpenter, no, he's fine with it. He's perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, he's chilling.
Oh, God. But, talk about, fucking Assault on Precinct 13. The politics in that movie are very, they're almost post-racial, I would say. I would say they're actually pretty post-racial because, like, yeah, I mean,
In as much as that can be a thing, sure. I mean, I think that they're a little bit more aware of, but there is like race text to the interactions between those characters.
that is also true. Yeah, I was more saying like I said, the fucking gang are like the most multiracial. Like literally, it's every racial demographic is in that gang. It's hilarious.
Well, that
to
might
me.
just be a movie thing. That's just a thing you see in movies too.
Well, I also think that maybe John Carpenter said he did that on purpose, so he didn't want his movie to be accused of being racist. I think.
Yeah, of course. I think that's why every movie does it.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, outside of Night of the Living Dead, where they chose that guy to be main
Oh,
character because he just said that was the best choice. So I mean,
yeah.
sure, but yeah. Oh God, but yeah. So that is our review of Brawl in Cell Block 99. Brian, do you have any final thoughts before we get to our pluggables?
Good kind of grindhouse neo noir action film. Pretty recommendable. This does have, like Zahler's other films, like right wing subtext that at times becomes text. So if that is a turnoff for you, understandably, I wouldn't recommend. But otherwise, yeah, I'd say if you like prison films, gritty noir action. I also want to say the soundtrack to this is incredible. So throughout the movie, there's very minimal score, which is this kind of, minimal tense synth thing. Most of the music is in scene, in universe music, and it's all soul songs by these artists, including the OJs have 2 songs in this film. Now, here's what I was reading about this. All of these songs are original to the movie. Zahler and his composer, Jeff Harriet, collaborated with these artists who are established soul and R&B artists to write new songs for the movie that sound like they're like classic 1970s, like funk and soul songs. It is a gorgeous soundtrack. Pretty much the only time you hear these is when our hero is driving around and he's playing them, on his radio. But I would highly recommend it. It's on Bandcamp. It's out on Lakeshore Records. And even if this movie doesn't sound interesting to you, if you're a fan of like 60s and 70s soul music, I would definitely recommend checking out this soundtrack. Blew my mind to learn that these are all original songs for the film.
Yeah, I think it's actually a very similar situation to Dragged Across Concrete because I think that's Craig Zahler did that for that movie too, if I'm not
Probably.
mistaken. And I mean, I think we mentioned it earlier. So I mean, of course, we mentioned Puppet Master and all that, but like before then, I think he was a black metal drummer in Florida or something like that. Like,
yes,
S. Craig Zahler is a fascinating figure in entertainment to me. Like, very interesting. Like,
yeah,
you had that guy who was in. Was it Emperor or Mayhem or some black metal band, Jonas Åkerlund, the Swedish musician slash filmmaker, who later went on to like direct a bunch of music videos and a bunch of movies and stuff like that. He's another guy that's very similar. Like somebody who got started in like Scandinavian black metal, like, back when that was like actually a pretty dangerous scene to be in. And now you have a guy, like S. Craig Zahler, who makes, once again, very high quality, but, mid to, well, I would say low budget outside of Dragged Across Concrete, which is like bordering on low budget to mid budget. But
yeah,
low budget,
for sure.
but quality reactionary films made by studios who suck. I want to be very clear. Oh, I forgot to mention. So I did mention a little bit on the producer side. So Dallas Saunier is one of the producers of this movie. He was also once again the producer of Dragged Across Concrete. And he owned Cinestate as well as the distribution company that distributed Fangoria magazine for 2 years. And the reason that he had to give up all these projects to shutter his studio was that one of his producers sexually assaulted a bunch of women. And that's why he's mostly making Ben Shapiro Daily Wire slop now, is because like he got kicked out of Hollywood for now for
I wonder how many people
a sexual abuser.
Well, how many people at the Daily Wire have that same exact story?
Well, so, and I'll get to my final thoughts in just a moment, but I want to finish this thought. So there's Jeremy Boring, there's Dallas Saunier, and this was the saddest one to hear, but Adam Green, the director of fucking Hatchet, the Hatchet series, are like longtime buddies. And so is Joel David Moore, who was the main guy in Hatchet, and he's also in the fucking Avatar movies. But anyways, like these guys are all like conservative, reactionary, like kind of entertainment burnouts. Now, I will say Adam Green, of course, has made entertaining movies, and Joel David Moore's in the Avatar movies, so they're fine. They're totally fine. They'll be okay. But like Jeremy Boring and fucking now Dallas Saunier, without, their cash cows, they're like, shit, what do we do? And they're like, well, we've been friends with fucking Ben Shapiro for a while. Let's just do Ben Shapiro bullshit.
Yeah, mask off. Who cares? Like,
Yeah,
do they care? Probably not, I guess.
God damn. Yeah, like I said, the Adam Green one was the most disappointing. I'm like, oh no, Adam Green, why? And like, he's not like my favorite director or anything like that, but I thought he was better than being involved in Daily Wire shit. Like, I thought he was better
I
than
mean,
that.
like when I learned, I was disappointed to learn that, but I had no reason to think that Adam Green was better than that either. I guess it's, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh yeah, a guy that makes those movies like that could be reactionary. A guy that makes like retro slasher movies, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. But once again, I was very disappointed to learn that, obviously. But yeah. All right. But yeah, my final thoughts. So I really loved this movie. I will say, even though I think personally, at least for right now, I think I like Dragged Across Concrete just a little bit more because I think there's just a trillion things to talk about with that movie. And I think there's a lot to talk about this with this movie too, but this movie's, quite a bit shorter. The plot's far less convoluted. It's pretty straightforward, which is not a bad thing. I want that to be very clear, but it's a movie that there's not as much to talk about as Dragged Across Concrete. So I think I like Dragged Across Concrete a little bit more, but I love both of these movies. And I think that if you're interested in, as you mentioned, like 70s grindhouse, sort of neo noir, like neo reactionary, like fucking retro reactionary filmmaking, I think you'll love this movie. And if you've ever written off Vince Vaughn as an actor, like Brian, both you and I have very much done, give him a chance because once again, he does good in both those movies.
Yeah, like he doesn't do any like crazy acting in this, but that's kind of what he plays pretty naturalistic, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
His performance in this kind of reminded me of a good Nick Cage performance, to be honest.
Yes.
Same energy.
Actually, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Joe in the movie Joe. So, which I know I mentioned that movie to you at some point on another episode. Man, that movie's fucking bad, dude. Who's the guy that did the most recent Halloween trilogy?
Eastbound and Down guy.
Yeah. He was the one that directed Joe. And boy, you can tell. You can fucking tell. I don't like that guy. I think he's a bad director. That's not here nor there.
Interesting. I've never seen Joe.
Yeah, ooh. Watch it sometime. Do research on what happened to the main bad guy actor in that, and that movie's gonna land like a turd in a punch bowl. I promise you that.
Oh no.
Yeah. I know I mentioned it to you. Oh, I mentioned it on the Pig episode. I mentioned the tragic backstory of that guy. Yeah, not great. Not great.
I'll have to revisit that episode and bum myself out.
Yeah, it's very, very depressing. But either way, well, we just talked about a depressing movie. So that is our review of Brawl in Cell Block 99. So let's get into our pluggables. So you can follow me at Carlos Chantor on Twitter.com. And as well, please follow us on both Spotify and YouTube, where we are uploading every episode simultaneously. And as well, please, as always, donate to the Lucifer and the Father GoFundMe. They're steadily gaining donations time and time again, and we really want to see a part 2 to this fantastic internet series.
Please, again, I will within reason, anyone that can prove that they came from our show and donated to Lucifer and the Father, I will match your donation within reason as well.
And Brian, I will do that too.
Cool.
I am
again within reason.
Within reason, yes. Not like $1,000, but like $50 for me, sure.
Yeah, do not own us by donating more than we can afford. As well, follow Millennials Are Old Pod on Instagram and the Millennials Are Old Facebook page. Again, please harass me, argue with me, recommend shows to us. If you find any good cringe content, especially if it really captures or reflects a generation, send it my way. I want to see it. I want to see, especially if they're millennials, but Zoomers, Gen X, Boomers, I'll take them all.
Yes, if you want to send Brian all of the Escape the Fate and Falling in Reverse songs that you love, Brian will listen to all of them.
Oh no. Well, we're getting ready to review shit like that coming up soon. Well, better than that, but
Hell yeah. I mean, to be fair, Brian, we are absolutely going to review at some point all of Fall Out Boy's discography, which to be fair is way better than Falling in Reverse and Escape the Fate, but that's not here.
Well, I mean, it probably is. I still wouldn't get much joy out of listening to it nowadays, although I'd have a lot to say about it.
You know what's funny is that in preparation for, I wouldn't say preparation to this movie, but I guess just to kind of like get into the mood of like seeing something unpleasant, I decided to listen to something pleasant first. So I've listened to all of fucking Fall Out Boy's like 2000s discography this last week.
The two albums that I would say probably hold up best to me are Folly Ado and Take This to Your Grave.
I'm actually midway through Folly Ado. I have not completed the 2000s.
If I was going to revisit an album by Fall Out Boy in 2024, which I wouldn't do, it would be Folly Ado. I think just because it's such a big sounding like concept rock, it's got kind of a power pop, like 70s, like glam rock thing a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I've really enjoyed it. Like, unlike all of Fall Out Boy's like post fucking breakup or post hiatus, I should say, output,
Yeah.
I like it. Because honestly, I don't know about you. Well, actually, I like Pac
I
Sam
mean,
Days. I like Pac
I
Sam
mean,
Days.
Pack Some Days is cool, it's fun. It was produced by Ryan Adams. Big fan of all the bands that they're aping, like Black Flag on there. I mean, I listened to a lot of the 2000s era Fall Out Boy during a period of my life, on and off. I would go through periods where I would hate it, and then I would do a bunch of speed and be like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I'd kind of dissect it and go, I like how they're influenced by Rites of Spring and Smoking Popes and The Descendants and Sunny Day Real Estate. And then I would come down again and I'd be like, oh, this actually kind of sucks. I've been on the this actually kind of sucks tip for about 10 years now.
That's totally fair. That's totally fair. Yeah, I
But I
mean,
have listened to a lot of them, a lot. And I've
uh,
done a lot of serious academic speed freak thinking about them.
as we were joking about on the Vegan Reich episode, it's just so funny to think Pete Wentz just like was fucking with FSU guys while they were writing The Return of Rock and Roll or whatever that shit ass album was
Oh,
called.
yeah, Save Rock and Roll. Towards the end, at some point after Follow You Do, they stopped sounding like a band. It's very weird.
That is true, yeah, because oh God, just one last tangent here because I really want to talk about this, but like it really reminds me a little bit. They've had basically the fucking like trajectory of Maroon 5. They really
Yeah.
have. Like
Well,
Maroon 5 started like as an actual band and then now it's just Adam Levine. Like that's all
well,
Maroon
and
5 is.
it's funny that we're talking about this, and I know I mentioned on a recent episode, if you look at the live version of like songs from Save Rock and Roll, they do try to adapt them to a four-piece rock band. And then Pete Wentz does his like screamo metalcore backup vocals on songs like Phoenix and stuff like that. It's so awkward. Look up their live version of the song Alone Together, which I think is from Save Rock and Roll. He tries to do this like, let's be alone together. You should look it up. It's so uncomfortable.
That's so goddamn funny. Oh God. But yeah, speaking of elder millennial nostalgia here, I'm nostalgic for going to sleep because I haven't went to sleep in almost 24 hours.
I gotta go to bed now too, because I'm having quite a week.
Yes, unfortunately, Brian. But you know what? Hopefully you could sleep that off. So to the rest
We'll
of
see.
our audience at home, have a good night, everybody.